All right, so today's topic, question, however you want to say it, comes from a question I was tagged in Facebook. And I see this a lot. People who have shoulder issues like, just shoulder pain and lifters, frozen shoulder, plantar fasciitis, carpal tunnel, frozen shoulder, scoliosis. A lot of these issues are actually neurologic in presentation. So what you have to understand is that your muscles have two things. They have strength and they have tone. Strength is how hard they can pull at any one given time. Tone is how hard they're pulling all the time. We also call tone posture or postural tone. So what you have to understand is that you have a lot of control over your tone. So if you continually use a muscle or you keep it in a specific length, that will help set its tone. So as a quick example, if you've ever been sitting at your desk for too long, and when you stand up, you feel your low back is tight, and then you feel kind of in the iliopsoas or in the hip that it's also too tight. The reason for that is because the muscle is supposed to be this long, but because of the way you've been sitting or standing or laying or whatever, the muscle's shorter. And so what happens is that there's little receptors inside the muscle and the tendon called Golgi tendon organs, muscle spindle fibers, things like that. And they send information to the brain that says, hey, we are this short, we're twisted like this, we're sitting like that. And so the brain starts to go, okay, cool, you're fine that way, stay there. And so what ends up happening is that you kind of reset the tone. Instead of being this long, it's this long. And so that's where it stays. And when you stand up, it goes, and it pulls against that tone, and it kind of like is stiff. Then you take a couple steps and it loosens up. The reason why the steps help to loosen it up, because all the musculature around it also has little receptors in it, those muscle spindle fibers, Golgi tendon organs, and all the other stuff. And so it sends a bunch of information to the brain, and the brain goes, hold on, hip flexor, iliopsoas, you're this long, I need you that long. And so the brain goes, okay, and it resets and it lengthens up. So after a couple steps of actually functionally using the joint, it works itself out and you're usually okay. Chronic use of this gives you low back issues, hip issues, knee issues, things like that. So when we look at our lifters, people who are doing bench press a lot, and I've gone on and on about how much I hate using bars, especially for shoulders, because the natural range of motion of the shoulder is like this. You can't do that with a bar. But anyway, so what ends up happening a lot of times with a lot of different people is they'll do a lot of chest work, and they'll do great chest work. They'll be doing, even if they're doing dumbbells and flies with cables and stuff like that, even if they're not using bars, then what ends up happening is that they go and they sleep on their side. If they don't sleep on their side, they roll the shoulder in and they turn it like this. And now the pec is super short for 6 or 8 hours while you're sleeping on it. And then you wake up and you're like, it's stiff. And then people will tell me that it hurts right here. I'll go to the other side, right here. And they're like, it's just like right in here. Like certain things I do really make it hurt. Well, guess where the pec ties in? Right in there. And so what ends up happening is it gets shorter, rolls the shoulder forward, and because of the way they're connected is, it kind of opens up the AC joint ever so slightly, just a little tiny bit. Then when you start to use it, your body freaks out and goes, no, don't do that. And so it ends up hurting. So what we'll typically do is, we do this for everything. So this is the easiest proof that I am not a marketer. So what I've called this is neurologic reflexive inhibition. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to activate the musculature while it's under load. And so what I'll do is I'll stretch the musculature, activating all of those little receptors, and then take the shoulder through its full range of motion. Okay? And this is, by the way, super uncomfortable. Like I've made big burly Marines cry when they have frozen shoulder, but this is a great way to take it back to being healthy. So this is one of those big things. This is where we start talking about, okay, so for carpal tunnel, what ends up happening is that you type a lot, you text a lot. So you're using this muscle a lot that closes your hand, okay? But you're not using this muscle that opens your hand at all. And so what you want to do is you want to balance those two forces. And so what you want to do is jump online, go to Amazon, and grab finger rubber bands. Just type that in. They look like little silicone brass knuckles. And you stick your fingers in them and you exercise the opening of the hand, okay? So think about this. You've done all this grabbing, clasping, turning, typing, texting. Everything brings your fingers together. So that overuse of bringing the fingers together makes this muscle really dominant, and this one really kind of doesn't get that much use. And so what ends up happening is that, and you can see this if you ever put E-stim on this muscle group, closes the hand. So this muscle group does this. So as it does that, you're going to get pinching in the carpal tunnel, and that's where a lot of carpal tunnel syndrome issues come from. So get those little rubber bands and exercise the opening of the hand. Now remember, this isn't a strength thing, it's a tone thing. Tone thing comes from use. And so what you want to do is get those little rubber bands and get one that you can feel, but you can get all the way open. Like you're like, this is pretty, like I can feel the resistance, but I can get my hand all the way open. So and you do that to exhaustion. Give yourself 30, 40 seconds, do it again to exhaustion. Give yourself 30, 40 seconds, do it again. So three sets to exhaustion, and do that a couple times a day. If you guys are sitting at your desk, this is a great thing to do. If you're going to be doing it while you're driving, also a great thing to do. Do one hand at a time if you're driving. Just, I realize how silly that sounds, but people are people. So just keep doing that, and it'll help rebalance the carpal tunnel. We see this all the time. For plantar fasciitis, I use the Achilles tendon to activate all the receptors in there. But specifically for shoulder, it's one of those where, so you get your pec major, pec minor, and so I'll go up underneath them and really distract them as you go through the whole range of motion. Make sure that thumb gets that external rotation. So here, and then we'll do lat work. So subscap and lat. So up in there as you're doing the same thing. That will usually loosen the shoulder up. I really recommend that you get the joints adjusted. So thoracic spine, ribs, cervical spine or neck, mid back, adjust the shoulder and just kind of work that piece out really, really well. Dry needling is also a great thing for this. If you've ever done dry needling and you've ever had a needle hit a muscle just right, you go, "Pah!" and it feels like someone plugged a guitar string, and it just kind of shocks all of a sudden, and you're like, like you hit the right muscle when that happens. So dry needling, I'm a big fan of dry needling for this. Lots and lots of stripping out, physical therapy. Typically what I'll do for this type of issue, if I'm seeing it in my clinic, we'll do it 3 times a week for about 3 weeks. Shoulder stuff, like I said, is pretty uncomfortable, but it works really, really well. We've had guys with frozen shoulders who couldn't lift their arm more than this, get all the way up when we get done. I've had a lot of people for plantar fasciitis come in, like they'll come in on crutches, they'll come in on those little wheelie carts. And most of these guys, if it's true like plantar fasciitis, when they stand up, they're like, holy crap, I feel a difference like after the first treatment. And that's usually how we know that this is definitely the thing. If after 2 or 3 treatments, you're like, I don't feel that much, then we go for imaging. So for instance, on plantar fasciitis, I'll always remember this. I had this lady come in. She's I want to say she's a colonel in the Army. And so she comes in, I work on her ankle, and she's like, I don't think that helped much. All right. So after the 3rd time, she was like, I don't think that helped much. I was like, all right. So let's get imaging just to see if there's a bone spur or something like that. Her heel bone was broken in 2 places, and she was still running on it. And I was just like, this is unbelievable. But that's what we see. So if this stuff doesn't work after, like I said, about 3 treatments, we'll get imaging. Lots of times we see, very rarely do I actually see the calcaneus broken. This was a weird case, that's why I remember it. We see lots of bone spurs. We see lots of, cysts or, growths or tears in the plantar fascia. We see that on MRI. And those are obviously a different issue. So imaging is very beneficial, but I usually do it after we've done the therapy to see if they've had any issues. Start looking at neurologic tone. If you guys are lifters or athletes of any kind, and you've got chronic issues, this is a big deal. This is also why one of the major exercises I give everybody who comes in for their low back, people come in, they're like, my low back's stiff and sore. And I'm like, did you do anything? They're like, not really. We're going to start working on hamstring tone. So this is one of those where we get everybody feet together, knees not locked, but like 98% locked. Then you just bend over and touch your toes. And then what ends up happening is people are like, well, I can't touch my toes. If you can't bend over and touch your toes, you're going to have hip and low back issues. Straight out. Your hamstrings are way too tight. You've got to loosen them up. Loosening them up with exercise is the easiest way. Dynamic, constant movement is going to be best because that's how we activate neurologic function. If you go into a static stretch where you bend over and hang, your body freaks out, releases endorphins, so it does feel good, but it's not really going to help change muscle belly tone as active motion will. So like that's the bend over, touch your toes exercise. We have people do that. And what's funny is that this is just not something that people do. If you ask somebody like, well, how often do you touch your toes? And people are like, never. Or they're like, I can't touch my toes. Well, that's terrible. So once we get people doing that, then we add weights into that same exercise. We build those weights up because this is part of that whole, if you want your back to be able to do stuff, you need to train it. Every part of your body, if you ever want it to be functional, you need to train it. Because if you just sit at your desk all day long, then you go pick up that case of water at Costco or Sam's, and you wonder why your back hurts, you just picked up 30 pounds. So a liter of water is 2.2 pounds. It's how that we designed, it's how the metric system was set up. So if you pick up, 10 liters of water, that's 22 pounds. And you're picking it up and you're bending, you're flexing at the low back and rotating at the low back. You're asking muscles to work that you don't ever train. And so that's why we get some of these issues from back issues that are actually neurologic tone and origin. So keep exercising that full range of motion. One of the big things for the shoulder, by the way, if you're going to do a lot of press, bring that elbow out and bring that elbow in. You need to do the opposite thing on your back. So for instance, big open flies, one of the things we have our people do is high right, low left, then the other side to kind of get that shoulder back open. And so as you're opening up the back, it's going to be really, really helpful. One of the things I also do is, on this topic, is I'll have people do, when we do lats, not with a bar, but with cables, so you can come all the way down in proper motion, and you don't have to worry about a bar going in front of or behind your head. Cables allows you to come straight down and get that full activation, open that chest up, and get the back working. The other one is when you do traps, take your dumbbells and roll them all the way back around and look up. So you're coming up here. So your elbows are behind your body frame, coming up, get that little squeeze. Because again, we want to open that chest up as we're activating other musculature to allow the muscles to elongate and get their full range of motion and get as open as possible. So those are some of the things I'd have you guys do if you're lifting. It's just kind of a maintenance thing. Because what I see over time is if you understand how your body's supposed to move and you're like, okay, I'm going to just really, really lean into the functional movement of my body, you're not only going to be able to build the musculature, but you're also going to be able to restore health to the joint, ligament, and tendon. So instead of exercising, tearing your body down, we're going to actually use exercise to build the body up. We've got a lot of older lifters. It's always funny because you see the guys who are really big into bench press, for years, because when they get about 40 to 50, they start getting those little dots on their shoulders from the orthoscopic surgery from when they've torn their shoulders up. But if that's what you love to do, bench press is what you love to do, cool. Just make sure you offset all that stuff with posterior work, upper trap work, and everything else you're doing is getting your shoulders back as you're coming up. So if you guys have any questions on that, ask them out. If you guys are in the area and you have plantar fasciitis, carpal tunnel, frozen shoulder, scoliosis issues, come in and we'll get them worked on. If you have daughters, men and women, if you've got daughters who are between the ages of 11 and 15, I would start getting x-rays of their spine. We call them P to A, weight-bearing thoracic. So they're standing up. You want to take x-rays from the pelvis all the way up to the skull, so the entire spine. And what we're looking for is slight deviations in the spine. So the scoliosis stuff, right? So it starts curving like this. Well, guess what? The tone on the inside is higher than the tone on the outside. So what you do is you develop exercises to activate the tone on the outside, and it straightens that scoliosis. This will work in people who are like 30 and 40. But man, if you can catch these girls when they're in their teenage years while they're actively developing this neurologic tone issue, you can offset it and save them years and years and years of pain and misery. So if you guys have daughters and you guys aren't doing that, I can help set that up if you're in town. If not, talk to your, find a chiro who knows how to do neurologic tone work and get into it. Like I said, if you guys have any other questions, hit us up. Hope this helps out. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.